Hi everyone. So today or in this video I wanted to go over this drainage assessment for the Manoa Banyan Court project. So this was one of the things that DPP specifically asked for during when they denied the first DEA that said, there's no drainage impact, we're just going to drain to the ditch. DPP asked, more details on how much additional drainage, how it's going to flow, how are you going to manage that additional drainage. So that's the impetus for this assessment, and kind of spoiler alert here, in this new DEA, they're going to reference the conclusion here that says that they can mitigate the issue. So in this video, I wanted to go through the actual assessment in the appendix and see, specifically what are they mitigating, how, and does that really kind of cover, are we really safer, from flooding or whatnot? So let's kind of jump into this. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so they're gonna reference City and County's storm drainage standards document to get this method. It's like a method of calculating peak flow rate Q here in this rational method. It's a 10-year peak flow, so 10-year storm, 10-year, that's kind of like the rarity, I guess, approximately every 10-year event. And the peak flow specifically is going to be like a 1 hour peak flow. So in the 10-year storm, 10-year event, a 1 hour like heavy rain event is the basis for this for these calculations. There's kind of three major components to this flow rate. The runoff coefficient, so how much percent of the water that hits the site they think is going to run off. I, the intensity, how hard it's raining. Modeled, maybe. We'll get to that later. And A, the area of the site. These are some of the coefficients that they're planning on using, and I guess the only thing that I'll come back to later is the existing, what they're calling, planted area at 0.4. I feel that's pretty high, and I'll go into some kind of reference why I think that's high. So the reason I say that is this is sort of their baseline. They're going to use kind of 0.4, so 40% runoff currently. And then on the places that they're going to develop, they're going to call for an increase in the runoff to 0.7 or 70%. So they're kind of saying if they say that it's currently 40% going to 70%, that's a 75% increase or whatever. But I'm going to argue it might even be more. This number, I think, for normal circumstances should be lower, but I'll get into that kind of at the end of this video. Okay, so this is kind of what they did. They broke up the site into these, what they're calling these basins, and I'm going to jump further into this document where it shows visually how they kind of cut this up here. So this is just their property, like it's the TMK, like the taxable whatever. So if you can see in this picture, like the A's, the blues, it's like the existing cemetery. It's not part of the actual development. It's just part of the land they own. So I mean, they're including this as like in this, but it's not really changing at all. So to me, it just kind of pads the denominator, to say, well, currently it's this amount anyway. And then these basins or whatever broken up parts are the ones that are going to be changing, right? Because of the proposal, they're going to change it from whatever the existing is, to this building area thing. Okay, so so you can see in the existing world, they're picking numbers that are all around 0.4, which is what it is, I guess. And so they're claiming that after they go through the maths, it's going to be for the entire site now, including the existing cemetery, it's 43 cubic feet per second of flow during this modeled storm, modeled rain event. Okay, So then, okay, so we'll jump down and they're gonna go to the proposed, and the biggest difference here is in the sections that have development, in those basin chunks that had development, the numbers are changing to um, zero 0.7. And by increasing the runoff, coefficient means more percentage of water is running off. You end up with an increased peak flow rate, and it's going up to 64. So again, it looks like okay, going from 40 to 60. So yeah, was that a 50% increase or whatever? But again, this includes a lot of areas that really aren't. I mean, it's part of property, but it's not part of the development or proposed development. It wouldn't, change anyway. So the change, all of the areas that will change, it's gonna be, going up by, maybe 70%, in the areas that are being developed, like these pieces, right, that are changing to 0.7. Okay, so they're gonna propose these potential detention basins, which are just like ponds or something, dug out, something that can hold water. So as it's raining, uh, during the heaviest rains, maybe it can hold some of the water back, and that reduces the flow rate at the output, Q. So they're saying that existing, let's say, they're only going to do it for where it's changing, right? So existing, they're saying this B1 might be flowing at 4.4, and then without any kind of, just the increased runoff from the building, so without detention, it'll increase to 8.2. So they're proposing to hold back, they're going to have this pond or whatever that holds back some rate so that it reduces the maximum flow rate. So now they can show, according to these models, they can show, hey, we're actually improving things because, existing they're claiming is 43, and now we can detain, so it'll be even less. Okay, so it's worth noting that, this is a rate. So even if you, add this pond, it buffers, it slows down the rate. It's still increased runoff water volume, right? So this difference between the 4.4 and 8.2, it's creating more water, like that's running off. It's not being absorbed. So, detaining it reduces the rate at which it will make it down because you're holding it back. But, you still have an increase in runoff water volume. I mean, you can't. The detention basin, it just slows down the rate. It doesn't. Oh yeah, okay. So they're claiming that they're gonna have good best practices. Okay, so the conclusion here, they're saying that based on the accordance with this thing, blah 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 blah. Okay, so they're saying it would not result in any significant increase in the peak runoff. So that's sort of what they're saying. The summary of what they're saying. This kind of, I had a few questions. The first was, this is what they're calling a 10-year event. So what happens in a 20-year, whatever, 11-year storm or 20-year, right? In a more extreme event. The flood that hit Manoa, or in I think it was 2004-ish, the one that flooded the Hamilton Library, that was a 20 to 25-year storm. So, I mean, a bigger storm than event in this model. And the way that these detention basins, it's like once whatever size they are, once they fill up, then it's going to not do anymore, right? Once it detains as much as it fills up, it can't detain anymore. So any storms that are more extreme than this modeled storm is going to overwhelm whatever system would be designed and placed there, and it would create that that increased runoff rate, and according to even this model, they're thinking it's going to increase from, in the areas that they're developing, which is approximately 9 acres of this overall site, are in basins that are being developed. So over the 9 acres, the coefficients in this report, they're saying is going to go from 40% runoff to 70%. So that additional runoff in storms larger than the modeled storm will not be detained, right? Because it's going to fill up, and so it definitely will, increase flow rate for those events. And I'm gonna kind of maybe stop this video and do a second part. I want to dive a little bit deeper into what exactly this design storm is. There's a lot of other assumptions kind of in this design storm that kind of make it it's more of a mathematical thing than a real storm that we might see. And the other thing I want to talk about was this assumption that the existing coefficient is zero point 0.4. So the idea that currently there's a 40% runoff. I don't think that's accurate, and I kind of want to explain that part in a little more detail. But I'm gonna stop this video and kind of start another video, my next part 2, which is more the detailed deep dive. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. This just went over kind of what the assessment, face value, sort of what it was saying.